Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Reading Rocks again, and very excited this evening. We've got some very special guests. We are talking about one of the books from the recent May teacher subscription box, the Key Stage 1 box. So this was one of the books, and the one we're going to talk about this evening is this, a very, very beautiful book, Pip and Egg. And we're very fortunate that this evening we are joined by both Alex Latimer, author, and David Litchfield, the illustrator. So, are you both ready? They can see me. We shall bring them into the studio.
Hi.
Hi, David. Good evening.
Hello. Good evening. Hello.
Hi, Alex. How are you?
Hi, Heather. I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm brilliant, thank you. Tell us where you're joining us from, Alex.
I live in Cape Town, so the very bottom of Africa. But I'm directly below you guys, so the time zone isn't crazy.
That's good, isn't it? Works out quite nice. And whereabouts are you, David? Whereabouts in the country? Not quite as far.
I am rather less excitingly. I'm in Bedford, in Bedfordshire, in England. Where it's really hot, so we probably got comparative heat, I think, because it's finally hot over here. So
well, I've got my heater on under my desk right now.
Oh,
so,
of course, that's how
switched around. Yeah.
Oh wow. Well, I'm in Cornwall, but it's been a typical Cornish mizzle today.
Oh, mizzle! That's a great
word. It's a great word, isn't it?
Mizzle.
So, Pip and Egg.
Woo!
Great book. I wonder if Alex, you can tell us where the idea came from. Tell us a bit about Pip and Egg.
Sure. I always think when you ask anyone where an idea comes from, it's this invitation into the sort of recesses of their brain, and which is great. So I think there was the one thing that I was thinking a lot about is just how. I'll tie this all together. I'll be quick, but I was thinking about how similar animals are. That you look at a dinosaur and it's got vertebra and it's got a skull and you look at these skeletons that they're digging out of the rock, and you can label them all exactly the same as our skeletons. Basically, we've got a tibia and a fibula and a humerus and an ulna, and then you look at a tortoise and you look at a whale, and we have all these similarities across the animal kingdom. And then I was thinking along those lines, the difference between a plant and an animal, like how close are we really? And there are obviously similarities. There's DNA in all of us, and we have the same kinds of cells. But I think that's sort of where it started, where there was this sort of kin between animals, and then this separation with plants. And for me to I think I'm always thinking of stories and looking for stories in every day, and that idea of these two quite separate living things finding friendship and also, yeah, I think it's that I brought a prop along today. There's an ostrich farm near us.
Wow.
And so I often take my daughters that way, and yeah, it's I suppose these things leak into your into your subconscious, where you when you're thinking of stories and they sort of pop in. Yeah,
Was that a real egg? Was that a real egg?
It's a real ostrich egg. Yeah, you can see they've.
Wow!
It's not going to hatch, so.
It looks like it just looks like it's a big toy. It doesn't look real somehow. It looks great.
It's quite insane, right?
Yeah.
Did you eat the contents?
No, I've actually.
How big's that fried egg?
Yeah, well, I've never. People, I mean, they do serve them. I think I've never actually had one, and I've never. I don't think. I feel like I've never had enough friends around for breakfast, really, for an egg that size.
So is egg a particular type of egg, or was that, or did that come from you, David? Who are, you know?
Well, that was, yeah, though that's very much not an ostrich egg that I had in mind when I was drawing Pip. No, that was the regular, like the regular egg I buy from Sainsbury's look that I used for egg in the book. So no, now that I know he's inspired by an ostrich egg, that's really interesting.
It's really interesting. Yeah. I mean, the way in the story, for those who haven't read it yet, so as they grow and they change, it really strikes as a metaphor for how friendships change, that sometimes people stay put and friends go away, they travel, they come back. Were those phases of those characters' lives based on some of your own experiences or friends or just general?
No, absolutely. I mean, I feel like as it's a constant thing in life where you make friends and then you part ways. And I've got 2 daughters and they're 6 and 10. And I think in South Africa there's there are a few people who emigrate kind of regularly. And my daughter, one of her best friends, went to New Zealand, and the seeing that. Seeing her deal with that, and then also knowing that a friend of mine from school actually lives in England, and it's one of those friendships where if I was to fly over there and see him now, it would be like no time had passed. And it's this sort of the fact that time and space doesn't really have to affect the real friendships. There's obviously those people that will fall out of your life as you move along, but they're those sort of gems in your life that you come across, and they'll always be your friend, and they'll always be people that that connection is unbreakable, and that's sort of what inspired, I think, Pip and Egg, and and just how different we can be as people and remain friends. We don't, we can be plants and animals being friends together, which is wonderful. You can't see that. You can't always judge that connection from the outset, but you know it when you found it. Yeah.
It's interesting at the time of it being published with the pandemic and us finding different ways of connecting, and this kind of thing, being more prevalent to kind of stay in touch. And obviously you as author and illustrator are quite far apart. And this is a very special occasion, isn't it? This is the first time that you've met face to face. How exciting.
This is really the first time. Myself and Alex have emailed and tweeted, but this is the first time we've kind of had a live conversation. It's a magical moment.
Yeah. I think I brought some champagne.
No, I got some water. But it's weird, really. We were saying like I always assumed that authors and illustrators would just sort of hang out and work on their books together, and they'd be sort of throwing ideas. But that's literally never happened, regardless of the distance. Even some of the authors I've worked with who live in London or live up the road, it very rarely happens. I mean, I've met a few of them and sat down and talked about the book, but yeah, no, I guess it's going to get more common to do it on Zoom from now on. But yeah, this is a big moment in my life.
Well, it's been recorded, so we've taken hold of it, so you can watch it again.
Great, perfect.
Why don't you tell us then about how the book kind of grew and developed between yourselves and the communication, and you both. This book, Alex, you're author, and David, you're illustrator, but you're both authors and illustrators. I wonder whether that affected the way that you worked.
Well, for me, I mean, I wrote it and I drew a rough of it to sort of pitch it as an idea, and I think I'm always okay to illustrate whichever story a publisher wants me to, but I think in this instance, when they when they found David to do it, I had this first of all this desire to send David my roughs and say, this is what I've done so far. Have a look and use what you can. And then I thought, well, no, David's brilliant at his side, and at writing and at understanding story. And I think that's I think it was I felt so grateful and glad to have him on board and to have that trust right up front. I actually the first thing I did when I heard David was on board was I pretty much ordered all his books. And they arrived, and I read them all just to check them out. You know,
That's amazing.
No, I mean, yeah. There were new ones in there that I had never seen yet, like Lights on Cotton Rock, which is a brilliant. Yeah, what a fantastic book.
Oh, thank you. That's
With
one
a
of
hand?
actually. Yeah. Well, the thing was, like, when I got sent the project, I mean, I like instantly loved it. It was such a perfect story. It was, it was the kind of story that I love to illustrate and love to tell. And yeah, then when I found out Alex, I did something similar. I kind of looked up his work, and I realized he was actually an amazing illustrator himself. And I felt so much pressure. I felt incredible. Just because I was like, well, why is Alex not doing this? What is stopping him from just doing this, the way he wants to do it? But then I had to put those kind of thoughts to the back of my mind and just kind of treat it as every other book I do. But then thankfully, I'm in two minds. I'm kind of glad you didn't send me the rough. I also would have been intrigued, but then you did send me it like recently, like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and it was quite interesting, really, because Alex's rough, it was almost identical to my rough, right? It was kind of like very, very similar in kind of some of the compositions and the layout and stuff, and so it was obviously on the same wavelength, even though we didn't.
Need to share those on Instagram or something, like side by side. That would be so interesting.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and like I say, I just jumped at the chance of doing it, and I mean, yeah, I was like, well, Alex could do this himself quite easily, but then I was very glad that he didn't, because I just absolutely, this is one of the ones that I had, the most amount of fun drawing when I was doing it. It was just such a sweet story and such a charming story, and yeah, absolutely love drawing it. It's incredible.
Do each of you have a favourite part of it, a favourite character, or a favourite spread?
I do.
Well, I do. I actually, like, quite a long time ago, I was at a library event, and I just thought of this idea, and I had this. It was an event for, I think, some other books I'd done, sort of novels, and so it was a grown-up audience, lots of old ladies. And I basically pitched this idea. I told them the story while I was there. It wasn't part of the event. It was just sort of me figuring it out as I went. And there was that moment at the end where all those pieces fit back together. Where Egg comes back and says, "I know where I want to lay this new egg of mine." And for me, that's the one for me. It's right at the end here.
Yeah, that is a lovely moment.
I kind of like.
And I think as a writer, when you're writing a story, you and that end clicks into place like that. That's really a lot of satisfaction, and a lot of the hard work is solved, right?
I like the way Pip doesn't rip. Pip's at, well, where is it?
Yeah.
That kind of vulnerability of, are you sure you want to be with me? Spend time with me again. I really like.
My favourite bit. I have a few favourite bits. I mean, I think it's earlier. It's this spread. I love it. I'm very proud of the drawing of that one. I think it's one of my favourite. Like I'm I'm a bit of a sucker for sort of big kind of, you know, skylines and kind of dramatic skies and stuff. So I got the opportunity to do that there. But I just think this point in the story is just a really meaningful part of the story. And I think it's something that, you know, you can read a lot into that moment in the story, I think. And especially, you know, when, you know, young kids might be, well, hopefully young kids will be reading it. And what they might take from that moment. And for me, that's when, you know, both of these characters, particularly Pip, who's kind of started to root to the ground and can't move, and this is where he's gonna have to stay forever. You know, life is very much changing in that moment for both of these characters, and they're just kind of taking it all in and adapting to it, and kind of, you know, letting it wash over them, and they're just sort of like, look, it'll be okay because we've got each other. We're going to look out for each other. Whatever happens over the next few days, months, years, decades, and stuff, you know, centuries, we're gonna. Well, the tree will be there at least, not to get more. But yeah, we're going to look after each other. We're going to be kind of there for each other, and all these changes, we're going to kind of see them through together. And I just thought that was a lovely point in the story that I really love.
It's really good. And the book's got lots of moments like that, really, where, you know, there's lots of teachers watching this, and, you know, it's gone out in the teacher box that they can stop and have those discussions with children. I think it's a great book for the classroom, but I think a lot of teachers will use it for assemblies and talking points as well. Did you make it the kind of reddish sunsets deliberately, because it's kind of, it makes it a really warm moment, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so it's like, you know, this chapter of their life is closing and a new one's opening. There's all those kind of visual metaphors that you can read into a nice sunset. And yeah, I just think that was a real key moment for me. And I remember reading that moment and thinking, oh, this is just kind of magical. And then when I kind of went further and saw what did happen, you know, it was it's strange, really. Like when I was reading it, and I don't have the manuscript that I was sent, but I made little kind of thumbnail sketches throughout, and I could just so see this book so perfectly, like when I was reading it. And it was a page like that where I was just like, oh wow, I could really go to town with the kind of the nice textures and the lighting and stuff. So yeah.
I was going to say about, you know, it is very true to your style in all of the textures and the light. Tell us about, you know, and it must take you so long.
Well, it's funny, really. I've kind of got like, I try as much as possible. I try to so I make all the textures like in the real world. Basically, I cover pages with paint and watercolor and stuff. Just because I kind of have fun doing that's like one of my most favorite part of a project is just kind of making a mess and just kind of going. And then I scan them all in and kind of play around with them on Photoshop and add the kind of drawings and add some more textures and overlay them and do all that fun stuff and kind of just experiment for as long as I possibly can, really, in trying to make them look good. And I try and do that with newer textures as possible, because I want each book to kind of have its own look and whatnot. But this kind of book was one of my lockdown books. That sounds horrendous, but it was one of the books that I was working on when we got kind of told to stay at home the first time, and I didn't have access to too much kind of like kit. I didn't have access to too much paints and stuff, so I did have to recycle a few of the stuff. So that is actually a mixture of watercolor and actually a photograph. This again, this is how glamorous my life gets. That's a photograph of Hans Stanton, the sky in Hans Stanton. There was, when we went there a couple of years ago, there was a really dramatic sky that I just took a really cool photograph of. So that's kind of overlaid on my watercolors. So yeah, the glamour of Hans Stanton, one of my favorite beach resorts in Norfolk. But also some of the skylines here. So this one here, for example, with the big clouds. on this page specifically is actually from a painting that I did, or a study that I did of clouds when I was doing A-level art in school. So it's just so I kind of recycled that from you know, I don't want to age myself too much, but from decades. So it was fun. I could kind of go back, like, you know, and we were kind of at the same time we were kind of clearing out my house that we were locked down in, because we needed to. So I kind of came across a load of old kind of art stuff, and yeah, and that's kind of one of the great things about doing these books, is you can kind of go back and being an illustrator and keeping things like sketchbooks, and like I do just basically keep everything, because I always know it could be used again, and this book is very much a proof that is the case that you can read.
Is there anything else? Because, you know, on some of the pages, like the city and things like that, are there any like little hidden things that we might have spotted? Even Alex might not have spotted them yet.
A lot of the textures, you know, like I say, I try and create as much as myself so that it gives it my own feel and look. Pip, when he's a tree, I mean, you know, that's I've used the texture from a tree. Like I take photographs of bark and things when I'm walking around the park and stuff, and it like drives my family crazy sometimes, because I just have of interesting textures. So I could kind of overlay that onto the tree. Not really. A lot of it is kind of just painted, or a mixture of painting kind of in the real world, and then there's a tree from Russell Park, or the texture at least.
Love that. I think you should go to the park and just put a little plaque on it, as it's in Pip and Egg.
Yeah, maybe. You can obviously download a lot of these textures, or kind of find them via Mr. Google and stuff, but I don't know, there's just like that a big part of the process is kind of collecting these textures myself, and kind of, because it does give, and I've started to, I can sometimes, and it might be just how anal and weird I am, but I can sometimes spot different textures that people have got from other places, because you can kind of spot them in different books and stuff. And I just want mine, and you know, I'm not unique in this, because a lot of illustrators do this, but I want the textures I use to be kind of unique to me, and something that I've created. Basically, it's a bit time consuming, and a big part of my day is to kind of, you know, experiment with paint and texture and mix them all up. You know, it's just the way I like working, basically.
I love it. Was Alex, were the characters always Pip and Egg, or was it ever Seed, or is that?
They were always Pip and Egg. Seed I think is too small. Actually, I was there was that. I did some photographs of an avocado pip, and like that, I wanted that the egg and the pip size to be similar. And I think Seed is too small, and I played around with some titles, and our titles are always tricky, but I think it was the right title. It was the right. I think everything about it sort of. When I thought of the story and I wrote it, I actually had to Google to see whether someone else had written it already. I just thought not that it's super obvious, but it just seemed so like an ancient story, like a parable, even something where, like, you see these two things that are the same size and the same shape, and they have this potential to change into such drastically different things. So it was one of those processes I find when I write, that you can think of a good idea and you can write it down, and then you get to the end and it doesn't have an ending, or it doesn't have a title, and then you know you're in trouble. You know you're gonna work something out. It's not going to quite fit, but you'll punt it or whatever. Whereas this book, everything, it felt like it had all the bits. It was just sort of a perfect thing. Yeah.
It's such a concise story. It's just you know, it's a perfect kind of circular story that I just absolutely love, and yeah, that's one of the reasons why I come to
talk
the
about like at the end where we've got the next generation.
Yeah, it could just go around in the loop, this story.
Yeah, the life cycle as summarized by anthropomorphic seeds and eggs.
Like the way that hang on, the way this camera goes, the reference there at the bottom. Where are we?
Oh yeah, well there you go. Absolutely.
Kind of, you know, life goes round and goes on.
Yeah.
I like that reference as well.
Oh, yeah,
I liked, Alex, the way Pip and Egg obviously became the tree and the bird, but he didn't change their names. They were still true to who they were. Was that a deliberate choice? Did you think, oh, we might change their name partway through, and they became?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously thought about it, but I think I think once you've named characters, I think they have to stay that way. And it's one of those things where you write it. I mean, that's the way I had it. I had it as they were going to be Pip and Egg from beginning to end, even when Pip was a tree and Egg was a bird. And I think you give it to people and hope they read it the right way. And it worked. I think that's one of those things where sometimes, you know, if someone picks it up and goes, well, I don't understand, and I think kids might. But that isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's a opportunity to learn about the change and how these guys, the seed is the tree and the egg is the bird. It's It's
time's running tight now, and I think David might just do a little quick drawing for us. But I'm going to ask you 2 questions before that. One which is a bit silly, sorry, and a more sensible one. So the silly one. So obviously Pip and Egg are kind of the names that they had when they were children. Did each of you have a nickname as a child? Can you reveal it? And then the serious question is, this book I've sent out to over 100 classrooms. What is your hope that what message is it that you'd love children to get from it? Do you want to go first, Alex?
I don't know if I didn't have a weird nickname as a kid. I was the youngest, still am the youngest of 3 brothers. So I think I got called whatever they felt like calling me. Yeah, so nothing revealing there. Yeah, you, David?
Well, I didn't really have a nickname. Well, I had a few nicknames which were probably not very nice. Things like Scruffy and Smelly and some things, which some people still call me today. But up until the age of about 19, I was called by everyone. I was called Charlie, because Charles is my middle name. It's a very posh sounding middle name, David Charles Litchfield. And everyone used to call me Charlie, including like teachers and my friends and stuff. And then I got to 19 and I was like, no, I want to be called by my real name now. And I got very serious.
Wow.
My name is David Litchfield. And sometimes I think, oh, maybe I should have been called Charlie Litchfield. Maybe that was a better name for a children's book illustrator. But here we are. I'm David Litchfield, which is my actual real name. So, and Charlie Boy was my full nickname. I'm revealing Charlie Boy. Anyway, that's what I was called.
What's your key message? What do you hope that the children are going to get from this book?
For me, I think it's that friendship, that message of finding. My kids are at school and they're young, and every now and again they find new friends. But I love that idea of going through life and finding these friends who are going to be your friends forever, and I think it's important, and it's also not something that has to happen immediately, that you're at school or whatever. It can happen any time of your life, and it's I think it's one of those things that makes life a joyous experience, and it makes it's when you find people like you in the world, you find tribe or your group of people, and they don't have to be like you at all. But it just life is full then, and yeah, that's was my hope.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely how I see the book as well. You know, friendship endures. Good friendship will last forever, no matter what changes happen to you personally. And yeah, like Alex says, you know, you don't have to be from even the same kind of species to get on with people. You know, you can be completely different. You can be completely different backgrounds, completely different lives. But yeah, if you make a connection with someone, it's something to cherish, I think. So yeah, that's what I get out of the story. Okay, shall I try and do a quick drawing then? How long have we actually got? Shall I just?
How long is it going to take? Well, probably 5 minutes maximum.
Oh yeah, no, I will whip one up. I'll try my hardest to do. Okay. Let me just get all technical and just change my camera. 1 second. This is probably going to look awful. I always kind of forget how to draw when put on under pressure like this, but I'll give it a go. So I'm going to obviously.
I'm going to drop myself and Alex out of the screen for a moment, just so that we can see it.
So this is not the greatest camera. Are we in focus? Can we see us? Yes, there's my hand. So obviously drawing Pip and Egg is kind of easy. Draw an egg, give it a little face, and some legs. There we go. And then the Pip is obviously equally as easy. Just a little Pip, little face. There we go. So that's dead easy, right? But obviously this book gets a little bit more complicated when Pip and Egg become a bird and a tree. So I'm going to try and focus on Egg for this drawing. Now, the easiest way I found of drawing Egg was to almost draw a kind of fairly deformed pear shape like that. Kind of looks like a pear. Now this is when Egg is feeling particularly peaceful and graceful. So she's got her eyes closed. There we go. And let's draw her little legs because she's going to be flying. Give her a little shadow there so we can kind of know that she's off the ground. And where I really had fun drawing Egg was with her wings. I just saw them as a great opportunity to kind of add some of my beloved texture and you know, color, and just kind of go a bit wild with them. Really, she's not too much based on real birds. Obviously I looked at birds and their colorings and stuff, because I did just want it to be a really colorful bird with all these kind of unusual feathers and unusual textures and stuff. Now I'm going to very quickly try and give her a bit of color. This is going to be so scruffy, but here we go. Let's just go. You can kind of get away I find when you're drawing animals, you can kind of get away with them being scruffy because it kind of looks like fur. There we go. Let's get as scruffy as we can. There we go. Oh, I've forgotten her back feathers as well. Have a few feathers coming up there. There we go. Okay, so let's just color in a few of these. Because yeah, that's when I had just so much fun drawing the wings, the feathers on the wings. There we go. Just a few of them, just to give them a little splash of color. And then let's take this pen actually. Now, the way I draw feathers is very similar to the way I draw leaves, as you can probably see. There we go. Just a few, just to give them a few bits of detail here and there. And then why not? Let's give a few dots on the chest. Okay, one last thing, just to kind of put her into context, but let's give her some light. So let's say the light's coming from this direction. In fact, let's draw some stars to kind of indicate light coming down. There we go, a few little highlights here. And then again, on some of the feathers, let's give it a bit of a pattern. There we go. Very, very quick drawing of Egg. There you go. Thank you very much.
Amazing.
Lovely.
Yours is better than mine.
Oh, look, you were drawing along. Well done for keeping up with that.
You were going really, really fast. I tried
that
mine.
was speed drawing. Maybe if you play this back, you need to slow it down a little bit to follow it. But,
Well,
yeah.
hopefully.
One thing I was thinking was with a drawing or with a character like Egg is if kids were drawing it in school or at home or whatever, I thought they could really go to town with the textures and kind of experiment with mixed media, maybe on the wings, because that there's all kinds of different paints and colors and stuff that I used when I was doing the actual book. So yeah, really go for it. You can use fabric or leaves or anything that you can find, basically. Might be an idea.
Well, if anybody's watching this on replay and pausing and having a go, we'd love to see some of the pictures.
Yeah.
See if they're better than mine.
Definitely better than mine. Mine was quite quick. So.
No, yours was good. Well, I've had a great time. I hope you two have on this memorable occasion of your first face-to-face live meet. It's been really, really good discussing this brilliant book. One final question. Do you think you might work together again in the future? Is there anything in the I was going to say
maybe
but that's a really bad joke. Pipeline.
Maybe I should write a book for Alex to draw.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. I'll do it, David. And
idea.
I'll see what I can come up with.
The further adventures of Pip and Egg.
No, I would love to work with Alex. I think he's a great storyteller, story writer, and I just think well, definitely with Pip and Egg, I think our styles match so well that we're obviously thinking along the same lines. So yeah, definitely.
So hopefully, yeah.
Nothing
at the moment, but hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
Watch this space.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, and we shall say good evening to everybody. Thank you for joining us.